Every time I rewatch Spider-Man Far From Home, I end up liking it a little bit less. And that's disappointing because this movie had all the ingredients to be one of the best Spider-Man movies that has ever been told. And instead, it feels like a movie filled with fantastic ideas, but never really fully commits to any of them. What's up, y'all? Welcome to my review for Spider-Man Far From Home. Following the events of Avengers Endgame, Peter Parker travels across Europe on a school trip, trying to take a break from being Spider-Man. But when mysterious elemental creatures begin attacking cities around the world, Peter is forced back into action alongside a new hero known as Mysterio. Coming off the heels of Homecoming and especially Endgame, this movie had so much potential. When I tell you my hype level for Far From Home after Endgame was peak. It wasn't like Spider-Man 3 peak levels of excitement, but it was pretty high. Peter had just lost Tony Stark. The world is looking for the next Iron Man. He's carrying the weight of these huge expectations while also trying to navigate being a teenager. It's an incredibly compelling setup, but one of my biggest problems with Far From Home is that it barely scratches the surface of any of these ideas. The movie mentions Tony Stark a handful of times, and yes, Peter struggles with living up to those expectations, but none of it really gets explored, at least not fully explored, I will say. I kept waiting for the movie to dive into Peter's grief, that anxiety, the fear of letting everyone down, and maybe even the pressure of becoming the next leader of the Avengers. But instead, it just touches on all of those themes for like a scene, or I hesitate to even say multiple scenes, but it literally just touches on them for just a couple of seconds, enough to mention it, and then it completely disregards all of those themes and concepts and moves on to the next plot point. And truth be told, that is probably my biggest criticism of this movie as a whole. But to be fair, there's lots of criticisms that I have for Far From Home. On paper, all of these ideas seem really interesting, but once they actually get executed on screen, it feels half-baked. Now, with all that said, even if I do have issues with the themes that they're exploring in this movie, Tom Holland is still really good here. His chemistry with the rest of the cast continues to be one of the strongest aspects of this trilogy, whether he's interacting with Ned, MJ, Happy, or even Mysterio. He's extremely likable in this role as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. But, and this is a huge but, this is easily my least favorite version of Tom Holland's Spider-Man that we have gotten up to this point, and that's counting all the cameos and other movies that he's been in. And I gotta say, it's not even close. I will take any other movie with him over this one. One of the biggest things that I praised about Homecoming was how perfectly they balanced Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Spider-Man was constantly cracking jokes. He was energetic. It felt like a comic book character that got brought to life. And with this movie, that version of Spider-Man is completely gone. I honestly can't remember a single like Spider-Man wisecrack throughout the entire movie. And instead, Peter spends a lot of the film just reacting to certain things that happens around him rather than being right in the middle and trying to save people. He's just constantly reacting to the next sequence. And it's very aggravating when you watch this movie with that lens of, does Spider-Man really do anything in this movie? I'm not entirely sure. He's kind of just there for a majority of this movie. During almost every elemental attack, Mysterio is the one doing the heroics, while Spider-Man mostly just stands around, and he legitimately gets knocked around a lot in this movie. It feels like Spider-Man is a supporting character in his own movie. I understand why Marvel did this. They wanted Mysterio to earn Peter's trust so that handing over Edith actually makes sense. But the trade-off is that Spider-Man doesn't really feel like Spider-Man for a majority of the runtime. He doesn't become the hero of his own story until the very end. And going back to those action set pieces that I was just referring to a second ago, they're pretty underwhelming for a majority of the movie. The elementals sound like a fantastic idea, and visually, some of those sequences kind of look cool at times, but the execution never quite lands. These are some of the most bland Spider-Man action set pieces that we've ever gotten. And I would even put it up there in the category of maybe just like worse action sequences of a Marvel movie. They're really boring. Now, going back to the elementals for just a second, Mysterio defeats some of them completely off screen. And in the battles we do see, Spider-Man rarely feels like he's the one saving the day. He's barely involved in stopping the elementals. The Venice sequence is enjoyable now. I do like that. And it's not even Spider-Man there. It's Peter Parker just putting a mask over his face and pretending he's Spider-Man there. The London finale has some interesting moments once Peter finally realizes he's dealing with drones instead of actual monsters. But aside from those two sequences, the rest of the movie is kind of boring, with the exclusion of one sequence, which I think is the best sequence of the entire movie. The one that stands out the most with this entire movie is the illusion sequence. That entire sequence is phenomenal. I wish we would have gotten more of these sequences throughout the movie, because watching Spider-Man completely lose his grip on reality while Mysterio manipulates everything around him is one of the coolest things that we've ever gotten in a Spider-Man movie, period. It's creative. Visually, it looks really stunning, and it's unsettling at times. And I wish the movie would just have leaned into that just so much more in this movie. Instead of focusing on the elementals, I wish it would have been a mind game between Mysterio and Spider-Man for the entire runtime. Just keep out the elementals. I get why they put those in there, but Mysterio doesn't need the elementals to play a factor into his story. I think he's so good with manipulating your reality and visuals and whatnot that you could have had 2 or 3 of these type sequences in the movie, and it would have been really fucking cool. Now, speaking of Mysterio, Jake Gyllenhaal, I know some people don't like him. My brother always makes fun of me for being a Jake Gyllenhaal dick rider. I love the guy as an actor. There are some amazing movies that he has made over the years, and I just enjoy him as an actor. He was a fantastic casting choice for Mysterio. Look, whatever problems I have with Far From Home, Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio is not one of them. He is legitimately the only thing that keeps me invested in this movie. In a Spider-Man movie, of all things, where Spider-Man should be the main character, the guy that we root for every single time. And instead, they have kicked him to the back burner and brought Mysterio to the front burner, if I may. And while I love Mysterio in this movie, he shouldn't be the main character or the character that I want to see more of. So Jake Gyllenhaal does a great job with the role of Mysterio. Now, do I think that Mysterio has like the deepest or most compelling motivations here as a villain? No, I'm not going to sit here and say he's the greatest written villain of all time, but Jake Gyllenhaal 1000% commits to the role. So I almost don't even care about those motivations. He perfectly captures the charisma needed to fool not only Peter Parker and Nick Fury, but also the audience. Now, if you know ball like I do, being a Spider-Man fan, then you knew what was going to happen and what he was playing at before they slowly reveal just how manipulative and dangerous he really is. But most importantly, the movie makes Mysterio feel genuinely unstoppable at times. Even when Peter figures out what's actually happening, Mysterio always seems one step ahead. This could have been a generational type villain if the movie was just a lot better around him. Now, I will say he is easily one of the stronger villains in the MCU. So while I have plenty of issues from Far From Home, I honestly don't know if they could have handled Mysterio that much better in this live action movie. He's easily one of the stronger villains in the MCU that we have gotten. I just wish the movie was better around him. Another thing that I appreciate is the setting. For once, Spider-Man isn't swinging around New York. Traveling across Europe gives the movie a completely different visual identity. And I actually enjoyed seeing Spider-Man in environments that we don't usually associate with his character. But I think the story wastes that potential. The movie just jumps from one city to another, and conveniently, the elementals just so happen to appear wherever Peter Parker is. Nobody really questions why these disasters are following this random high school class across Europe. It's just one of those things that you just have to accept with the movie. And while we're talking about the supporting cast, I think this movie really misses an opportunity. Outside of Ned, Flash, and MJ, nobody really gets that much development. Instead, the movie spends a surprising amount of time with Nick Fury. Personally, I would have rather that time spent exploring Peter's relationship with Aunt May. Think about everything that they've both just experienced. Peter disappeared for 5 years. Tony Stark is gone. May lost Peter once already. There's so much emotional material here, and the movie barely touches any of it, which brings me to my second biggest complaint: Peter and MJ. So with my Homecoming review, I criticized how Marvel handled MJ's introduction. Unfortunately, I don't think this movie fixes the problem. I think it actually makes it worse. We're supposed to spend the entire movie rooting for Peter to finally tell MJ how he feels. But honestly, why do I feel that way? Homecoming did almost none of the work to build that relationship. They shared a handful of scenes together. Then Far From Home expects us to already be emotionally invested simply because we know who MJ is as a character and what their relationship should be like from the comics. The emotional foundation just isn't there. Then when Peter finally confesses his feelings on the bridge, this should have been one of the bigger emotional moments of the movie. And instead, it fell completely flat for me. Now, part of that is because I don't think the relationship was earned. And on the other side of things, it's just Marvel doing what Marvel loves to do, which is undercut emotional moments with comedy. It's something I've criticized in, I would say, all of my MCU movies up to this point. And I think it hurts the scene quite a bit. They are just expecting you to care for their relationship, for both of these characters, when we get a completely different MJ in this movie. You go back and watch Homecoming and Far From Home back to back, it's not the same MJ. I'm sorry. This is not the same character that Zendaya played in Homecoming. Not whatsoever. And I get it. You want to rewrite characters and make them better. But as a trilogy, you got to have kind of an outline. This is one of the biggest issues that I had with the Star Wars sequel trilogy. You should have had big moments kind of just outlined ahead of time. Like, hey, we want to do this with the first movie. The second movie, we kind of want to hit these big moments. And then the third movie, this is how we kind of wrap everything up. And then everything in between can be fixed because you're just kind of going from point A to point B within that outline. So I think they should have done that to some degree. It feels like messy writing here where we've gotten two completely different characters and they're expecting us to love this relationship when it was not earned whatsoever. But overall, guys, I think Spider-Man Far From Home is the definition of a mid-tier MCU movie. It's not my least favorite Spider-Man film ever. You know, I think once I review this trilogy plus Brand New Day and then go back and review some of the other movies, I can do a appropriate Spider-Man ranking list. I don't foresee myself ever really wanting to watch this movie again. And there are flashes of brilliance throughout this movie. Peter dealing with grief, learning to become his own hero, the pressure of replacing Tony Stark, his anxiety over leadership, and his relationship with MJ, his relationship with Aunt May after the blip. Every single one of those ideas could have made for an incredible Spider-Man story. The problem is the movie never commits to any of them. Instead, it just jumps from one interesting concept to the next without ever digging deep enough to make those moments truly resonate with the audience. Add in fairly forgettable action outside of the illusion sequence, and this ends up being one of those Marvel movies that I will find myself not going back to after I have seen it. There are just simply too many better Spider-Man movies out there that I'd rather spend my time watching. But guys, let me know down in the comments below of what you thought about Spider-Man Far From Home. Is it an underrated Spider-Man movie, or is it the worst one? Let me know your rankings down below as well. Hit that like, subscribe button. That's really going to help us grow the channel. And with all that being said, thank you for joining me for this review, and I will catch y'all next time on the next one. Laters.